I will give you 20 seconds to finish your current conversation. You have 15 seconds to finish your current conversation. You have 10 seconds to finish your current conversation. 9, 8, 7, 6. When I get to 1, the room will fall silent. 4, 3, 2, miraculous silence. Thank you. Financing inclusive and safe mobility is how we are starting with our next plenary, number 3. Anna Bierde is the Managing Director of Operations at the World Bank, and she wanted to begin this plenary. Anna, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this 21st edition of Transforming Transportation. I wish I could be there in person with all of you, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to add my perspective on the link between mobility and inclusion, a topic that resonates deeply with me. In our line of work, our number one motivation is to create opportunities. But those opportunities won't have much of an impact if people cannot get to them. That's why we must double down our efforts to build transport systems that are inclusive and do a better job of connecting people with work, education, healthcare, and all the services they need to reach their full potential. What does this look like in practice? Well, first, inclusive transport means transport that works for the poor. Over the past decade, we financed 28 public transport programs, such as bus rapid transit, metros, and urban rail, with the attention of connecting poor neighborhoods. These programs have benefited about 50 million people, enabling them to access almost 4 million additional jobs. Inclusive transport also means transport that works for women. In Cairo, for example, half of non-working women say that the absence of efficient and safe transport prevents them from getting a job. That's why we systematically apply a gender lens to all our transport projects. This includes leveraging digital technology to identify and reduce harassment in mass transit and providing transport subsidies for women. And finally, inclusive transport also means transport that works for persons with disabilities. In Ecuador, the new Quito Metro provides a great example. All stations are fully accessible, featuring elevators, braille signage, and turnstiles adapted for trolleys and wheelchairs. Further, half of all managerial positions are held by women. These features should be the norm, not the exception, and this is why every new urban transport project financed by the World Bank is now disability inclusive. As the demand for mobility continues to grow, inclusion cannot be an afterthought. It must be an integral part of the way we design transport projects from the very start. I'm sure the leaders and innovators who are about to take the stage will share many inspiring ideas on how we can make this happen. Together, let's continue to innovate so that we create transport systems that reach everyone, everywhere. Thank you.
So let us meet leaders and innovators for plenary number 3. Becky Bavinger, Public Health Specialist at Bloomberg Philanthropies. Becky, do come in, take a seat. Philip Brohert is the Secretary General, Department of Mobility and Public Works from the Flemish government in Belgium. Pavel Munoz Lopez is the Mayor of Quito in Ecuador. He's going to appear right here on the screen. Hello, Mayor. Excellent. Phew. Alex Talon, Senior Safety Strategy Manager, Transport for London. And Minister Alhaji Fande Toure is the Minister of Transport and Aviation for Sierra Leone. Please be seated. Fantastic. Good to have you all here. I am going to actually move you all up one seat. Otherwise, it will look like you won't like me because I'm going to sit here. So just move up one seat. Perfect. Beautiful. Very nice. All right. Now we're ready. This senator from the Parliament in the Republic of Kenya has been voted one of the top 5 hardest working senators. She's an extraordinary senator. She is an advocate, and she is just the perfect person to set the scene for our plenary on safety and inclusion. Senator Crystal Asige, thank you so much. It is good to have you here. Part of what she does is also she's an artist and a musician. I do not know if this microphone will inspire her to do more than speak, but we will find out. And if you applaud loud enough, who knows what can happen at the end. Senator, welcome.
I wasn't born with a disability, and since acquiring my disability and becoming a visually impaired person, but you can just call me VIP, I have learned how to become more inclusive when I begin any speech, and that is by giving a visual description of what I look like in case there are other VIPs in the audience. So I am a Black African 5'7" woman, natural Afro hair. Today I've got on a navy blue jumpsuit and gray flats. Since the last time I saw some of you in Leipzig, I have been very busy. I have been able to pass 4 different disability responsive legislation in the Senate with unanimous votes, and I have 6 more that I'm working on, which will hopefully make 10 by the time I'm done with this gig in a few years' time. Right. Sorry, my phone is talking to me, and it shouldn't be. So, Kenya hosted the inaugural African Summit in September 2023. The event yielded several notable commitments, chief amongst them being the call for a comprehensive overhaul of the global financial system to facilitate financing for climate action. It was recognized that Africa would require a substantial $2.8 trillion by 2030 to meet the emission targets outlined in the Paris Agreement. This ambitious goal would necessitate a 10-fold increase in climate investment, amounting to nearly 93% of the continent's current GDP. Importantly, these funds should be allocated toward developing an inclusive, safe transport systems, amongst other critical priorities. This ambitious goal would necessitate with an estimated 1.2 billion people experiencing disability globally, 80% of whom live in LMICs, it is further estimated that by 2030, more than 46% of people over the age of 60 will be categorized as disabled, and yet disability is still not having a seat at the table. Climate change-related crises have a direct impact on persons with disabilities. When it destroys accessible buildings, when it damages transport infrastructure, when it deteriorates our existing medical conditions, when it significantly reduces our economic participation and our livelihoods, and when it makes it impossible for us to access essential services, making us even more vulnerable to human rights abuses. So you can see why I was shocked, as a host participant at this summit, upon learning that there were no substantive conversations being had around Africa forging a path toward disability-inclusive climate action, especially amidst Kenya's extreme weather patterns. Our arid and semi-arid regions experienced extreme weather conditions between 2018 and 2022, making it the worst drought the country has ever seen in 40 years. 4.2 million people required climate crisis funding. And during this time, it was estimated that 1 person was dying of hunger every 36 seconds in East Africa. And then came the destructive El Nino rains from October 2023 to February 2024, killing over 174 people across Kenya, including 133 adults and 41 children, and forced 530,000 people from 105,824 households to be evacuated. Without critical budgets for disability-inclusive adaptation, emergency relief, and loss and damage being intentionally allocated and protected for and during climate crises to safeguard disability communities, we are overlooked, our allocators prioritized elsewhere, and our needs too are swept away. As a climate activist from Bangladesh put it, disability is not a key priority, and when the cuts come, they often come through disability first. Let's switch gears to inclusive mobility and transport. A globally researched factor in the link between disability and poverty is inaccessible, unaffordable, and unsafe transport systems, eroding the dignity, the independence, the confidence, equity, and inclusion of disabled people who, quite frankly, already have enough on their plate. Kenya's built environment clearly promotes ableism. Ableism is an attitude, a mindset that presumes being non-disabled as the default, as the norm. And ableism sees disability as inferior, something to overcome, to be healed, or to be fixed. As donors, when we fail to fund only universally designed compliant projects in African countries, that is ableism. When we allow ministries to cut corners to save time and money on materials, construction, and maintenance, that's ableism. Funding footbridges and narrow, less than 2-meter wide walkways for pedestrians, that's ableism. Not calling to account for poor access, poor signage, poor information points, and staff training at transit stations that you have funded is ableism. Green lighting plans for high-speed private cars and ignoring safe bus stops, tactile paving, sonic traffic lights with audio, visual, time-sensitive and rollable functions, that is ableism. Assuming that PWDs do not want or need access to arts and culture, sports and recreation, sights and sounds, trees, nature and wildlife, that is ableism. Universal design and inclusion is not a one and done, however. Even if all of these things were turned around by morning, realizing sustainable accessibility requires a collaborative ecosystem where accessibility is not something we add or consider as a half-baked option at the end of our programs, because we will have been overtaken by events by then. Accessibility must be embedded at conception, because if you haven't noticed, the world is about to blow up. We mustn't forget the intersectionality experienced by persons with disabilities either, and the diversity within disability when solving for inclusive climate action, because we are not homogeneous. Interventions for visually impaired persons versus physically impaired versus those who have neurodiverse conditions will need a very customized approach. Not only am I referring to how it will affect different types of disability, but also the increased impact expected across varying social categories like gender, geography, social condition, economic status, and so on. Best practice tells us over and over again that when you design and finance an environment that is fully accessible to the disabled as a benchmark, it is automatically safer, more sustainable, and easier to use for the non-disabled, as well as less costly in the long run, as you reduce the need for reconstruction and retrofitting once serious inclusion and human rights concerns are raised. In Kenya, the transport system is predominantly served by informal paratransit vehicles named matatus. Despite being our preferred mode of transport for 77% of us, according to a survey by Flown Initiative, many of us perceive matatus as inefficient, unreliable, and posing significant challenges, with operators often lacking training to assist us. In fact, the study found that 64% of those left at bus stations due to mobility challenges were PWDs. with an additional 10% being visually impaired. Accessing matatus is further complicated by inaccessible roads, crowded pavements, unmarked bus stops, disorganized travel information, and reckless motorcycle riders, forcing us PWDs to navigate risky footpaths along main roads. Other difficulties include high transport costs, transferring between matatus, and the poor condition of sidewalks and alighting areas. During my first visit to the US, I encountered Uber Assist, a service tailored for passengers with disabilities. Yet, this option is unavailable through the same Uber app in Kenya. In Europe, I've experienced trains and planes with Braille on the overhead panel to assist visually impaired passengers find our seat independently while we walk through the aisle. But none of the trains and aircrafts financed or sold to Africans by your countries make available these accessibility features. These kinds of disparities prompt questions about the discrepancies in the promotion of inclusive transport, extended from the global north to the global south. Regrettably, numerous African countries lack accessibility in our transport infrastructure, even with tremendous development investment being made by the West. Why is that? There is a pressing need to transform transportation dynamics and enhance mobility for PWDs. One crucial step is the urgent implementation of an accessible transport system. With existing policies in place, adequate financing is required for the integrated MRT project. This initiative can revolutionize transport for everyone in Africa and address challenges faced by PWDs and the elderly. Public-private partnerships could also be explored for financing, along with ensuring sufficient expertise to oversee program implementation. And how about lobbying in our respective education ministries for the introduction of road safety and climate action curriculums from primary school level? However, we cannot hope for any of these to be implemented due to the adequate financing, poor coordination of transport initiatives, working in silos as practitioners, thereby resulting in duplication of projects. There is also a weak link between the practitioners and policymakers and low engagement of PWDs throughout implementation, even though disability communities are the experts who can help inform sustainable change. Corruption often obstructs the progress by diverting funding from their purposes, exacerbating ableism. And why are we doing everything in our power to prioritize high-use cars when majority of us in Africa walk or use public transport anyway? Is it so that our beautiful African roads and buildings can compete with the Japans and Singapores and Switzerlands of the world? I believe that sometimes our leaders make decisions to look good globally rather than to do good locally. To ensure funds are used properly, donors and international organizations like the World Bank must implement strict measures such as requiring transparency in budget data, releasing funds in phases based on completion of climate responsive objectives, or withholding funds from projects that do not adhere to universal design principles, and establishing more robust oversight and monitoring mechanisms. It's simple. If inclusive transport conditions are not met by governments, then they should not pass go and that they should not collect 200. Yes, I understand that you can't force or helicopter governments to cross their T's and dot their I's, but continuing to release monies to countries that fail in these areas turn well-meaning donor organizations into contributors of human rights violations. For example, data on footbridges in Nairobi prove to cause more harm than good to pedestrians. They increase walking distances, encourage high-speed driving because they basically throw pedestrians in the air to get them out of the way of cars. They pose security risks where thieves wait in footbridges to harass and rob unexpected pedestrians, especially at night, and are impossible for people with disabilities to access and use safely. But still, we continue to fund them. Like I said, I've been very busy since I last saw you, and I'm practically exhausted, darling. But I do this because inclusive climate action-based infrastructure is not just the moral thing to do, but it's the right thing to do for sustainable development in Africa and in the world. I hope that I can see you after this, because I won't be able to see you, and chat more about ideas of the same. I thank you.
Senator, 1 second. It is my duty, as you helped us to understand how to describe an audience. You had several members of the audience giving you a standing ovation. Yeah. Not everybody, but some of them. Thank you, Senator. So we are going to be looking at financing inclusive and safe mobility from many different perspectives, from Sierra Leone, from the UK, from Belgium, from a road safety perspective, and also briefly from the mayor of Quito. It is so good to have you, Mayor Cabo Munoz Lopez. I wanted to ask you one detail before I let you go, because I know you have a busy day. Mayors are always busy. So the Mobility Master Plan, how does that fit into financing safe and inclusive mobility? What can you share with us, Mayor?
Muchas gracias. Primero,
thank you so much. Greetings from the most beautiful city in the world. Can you hear me?
Everybody's saying sí. Which I know means yes. Go ahead.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so very much. Once again, greetings from Quito, the capital of Ecuador. We say it's the most beautiful city in the world. Everyone says that about their own, but this is how we always present our city. Your question is for me to get started before moving into my own remarks. Allow me to tell you that we just approved a mobility plan for the city, this with a 20-year horizon, and this becomes a core matter. We have just opened our subway in the city of Ecuador, and we are extremely happy with the results obtained. At the same time, we are foreseeing the challenges to come. You asked me to share with you the Ecuadorian perspective and that of Quito specifically, how to have safe, inclusive mobility. And I'd like to discuss also the issues pertaining to financing, which are also highlighted in this discussion. I believe it is essential for countries and cities, especially developing countries, for us to take into account three elements that we need to consider. We need to dismantle three elements. First, what has to do with changing the order of priorities in our cities. Quito, for example, has 30% of its population using cars and 70% of individuals use public transportation. However, when we're thinking about public policy, many times, and even sponsored by mass media and social media, that 30% who drives cars and who feel affected if we make one decision or another to benefit pedestrians, they can make more noise than those who take public transportation. So we need to have a different order of priorities. Cities in Latin America, I think we are not different from other regions of the world. We have considered cars as the main character in mobility, and the main character needs to be the citizen. I have not been in office for a year yet, but we have made the decision that our priority and our main stakeholder will be the citizen, the pedestrian, followed by public transportation, and alternative means of transport, finding also solutions for those who ride a car, but that in the fourth place. This might seem something that garners lots of consensus, but that is not necessarily the case when you're engaging in public policy. Secondly, there is a perverse focus on mobility from the point of view of transportation. We need to look at mobility as social policy. Today in Quito, where the metro just opened, one of the main questions I get from the media, and this is important because they are starting to create this context where we are discussing these things. They usually ask, what is the grant the City Hall is providing the metro? That subsidy is high, but I wonder if that is the main issue to discuss. What I believe we should discuss is, on the other hand, the following. One person who lives in the south of the city, for this individual to get to school or to work, well, that person's life has changed. Before, that person needed 2 hours to get to the university. Today, it takes them 30 minutes to get to work or to university. That's a transformation. And our metro is functioning more as social policy than transportation policy. However, in the media, we see that they are spotlighting the amount of subsidy that we are providing without asking themselves how this new means of transport is improving the lives of citizens. I believe this is essential, and I think we all think, for example, Juan and Maria in a city in Latin America work in the same place. Juan tends to be the owner of the company. Maybe Maria is one of the employees, quite likely doing the cleaning. Juan wins 5 times what Maria makes. And he lives very close to his factory. Maria, who makes much less, lives on the outskirts of the city and has a much longer time to get there. Isn't this social policy? Shouldn't we consider how we are improving the living standards of individuals? I believe this is the main element, but the official discourse centers just on the financial aspect without noticing the social benefits. The third element to overcome, and this is something we are seeing in Latin America, it's this dogma of austerity, this fascination on the side of more neoliberal or right-wing governments. This idea of questioning every dollar we allocate, analyzing the return of that dollar. And I say this because in the last 3 terms in Ecuador, we see governments that make austerity in an economic prudence principle and a government dogma. So today we face a problem. When we opened the metro in Quito, the second question was, how are we going to expand it? And we are not having any support from the central government, even though it would be profitable for them to do so because the metro in Quito is avoiding carbon emissions. We could be part of the carbon market. We are preventing the consumption of subsidized fuels. This is one of the line items on which the Ecuadorian government spends the most. And it would also be positive for the government to subsidize this expansion of the metro because they would save on fuel. But I believe there is this blindness towards it. To wrap up, I'd like to put on the table other elements that we need to take into account thinking about the future. The metro in Quito, for example, allowed us to use municipal resources, not government resources. And as far as I know, this is the only experience thus far with 4 lenders. The World Bank, greetings to the World Bank for organizing this event today, the European Investment Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Latin American Development Agency, CAF. So we have a virtuous circle. We have local, regional resources and those of those that come from cooperating with international organizations. We are using local resources today for the expansion and the funds of this for international organizations, but it would be very interesting for the World Bank to encourage the central government to also contribute to sustainable and e-mobility models in each of our cities. Our second challenge is to broaden the model we call trolleybus, which is an electric bus, which we used to have in the city. Quito was one of the first cities in Latin America to have e-mobility for the citizens. This in the 90s, we were a pioneer, but that was pushed aside, unfortunately. We have purchased several more of these trolley buses.
You are sharing the conversation with panelists who are here in Washington, D.C., eager to join you in the conversation. So for now, I thank you for your contribution. We really appreciate your insights from Quito. Thank you, Mayor. I am thinking...
Con todo gusto. Un abrazo.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mayor. Muchas gracias. I am thinking about priorities. What are your priorities? We're already hearing from some of the earlier contributors about where we have room to improve in terms of inclusivity, financing inclusivity, and safe mobility. For Sierra Leone, Mr., what is your priority?
Thank you very much. For Sierra Leone, maybe it would be good to take you a step back. For Sierra Leone, before today, the informal transportation that we used to have, we never had a formal form of transportation. So what we did in our medium-term development plan is to focus on those areas wherein we'll be able to firstly touch on our citizens, where they live, and to be able to move them from one location to the other. And doing so, we have to take that from our medium development plan, which has to do with the 5 game changers by His Excellency the President. And the Transport Ministry falls in the 4th one, which is technology and mobility as well, and infrastructure. So in my priority as the Minister of Transport, so what I did was to come up with a plan. The plan would include transportation, not just on the land, air, and sea. And therefore, we worked with the World Bank, and we're very grateful to the support that they provided. So we worked with the World Bank to provide first a pilot scheme, which we have buses, 50 buses we are provided for us. And so we have that as a pilot scheme for urban mobility. And so our focus has been there to run those buses. It's called the Waka Fine. That's how we dubbed it. It's called Waka Fine.
Yeah. The Waka Fine.
Waka Fine buses.
Okay.
And so 70% of our citizens have been, moved with these buses. So about only 30% use their cars to work. So the bulk of the population within the city of Freetown use these worker-find buses. And so with these buses, they have started and they're really doing what we want them to do. And therefore, we continue to put our priorities on that, in improving their transportation. We're also looking at the safety of disabled, unlike what the senator just said. For Sierra Leone, we want to ensure that we bring them on board during the planning so that they will also own the process. So we take care of the disabled, and we also have special buses as well for students as well, and we're able to create bus lanes specifically for these buses. So, but they are still not enough. We still need some more support to be able to improve on those safety measures.
Was this your plan?
Yes, it's the plan of the ministry.
Okay, how do you come up with a plan as a ministry? What is that process like?
So what we did, we derived our directive from the Medium Development Plan, which is also linked with the SDGs, the 2030 and the African Union Agenda 2063. So it's all linked from there, and we're able to have that plan to be able to improve on the transportation system in Sierra Leone.
Becky, often pedestrians, people's public health is not necessarily at the forefront when we're talking about safety, inclusivity. And this, I know, is something that you talk about all of the time. So what are the challenges? What are the priorities?
I think from Bloomberg Philanthropy's perspective, we have a very simple priority, and that's speed management. So we now know through research that speed contributes to more than half of the fatalities around the world. The World Health Organization estimates that we still have 1.2 million people dying every year from road traffic injuries, and it's the leading cause of death, for 5 to 29-year-olds. So this, from the public health community, is a crisis. We are talking about children, we're talking about young people going to university or school or coming to their first job. So it has a huge economic impact as well. So based on the knowledge that we have, public health people always like to talk about data. And my big boss, Mike Bloomberg, he has an expression that says, "In God we trust, everyone else bring data." So we always look at data, and we know now speed is the leading contributor to these fatalities and serious injuries. So we're working with 27 cities around the world, all in low and middle income countries, to have a comprehensive speed management plan. And it's not just the 3 E's. We're using a safe system approach. We're talking about traffic calming through the infrastructure, where we are engaging with enforcement agents so that they are enforcing on speed in ways that include both roadside and automated. We're using engagement with journalists and mass media campaigns to educate people about the dangers of speeding. We're trying to make this conversation where we were with drinking and driving decades ago, where people finally understand drinking and driving is taboo, at least hopefully it is in all of your countries, it is in the US. And we want speeding to be that same cultural identity, that we know that this is a very bad thing to do. It impacts people around you. It's not an individual right. This has collateral damage.
It's so simple. It's a single message. How long does a single message take to get through?
Are there any countries that have completely solved this yet? I mean, we always turn to Australia. I think in public health, we always look at Australia. They have great declines in tobacco use, for example. They had great declines in their road fatalities, but they're the first people that will tell you it's not over, because every year and I hate to say this to the young men in the room, but you have more and more young men coming onto the road. And from a public health perspective, it's often young men that are engaging in dangerous behaviors, including speeding. So you have to continuously educate and enforce, but most importantly, build your environment. All that infrastructure work has to be done. So every single road has traffic calming, and you physically can't allow someone to go over a speed that's not safe for that road type. So it's never done. unfortunately, unless we have some examples.
We see it's not only young men, it's also men above 50. No, it's right. We've seen it in the data. The data show that people over 50, men especially, they drink again, they speed again, and they cause accidents.
Is this a midlife crisis? It's like you're a teen, and then you get to your 50s and you have a midlife crisis, so you want to act like a teen again.
Well, I don't know. I turned 50 last year, but I'm still not in my midlife crisis, so I don't know.
Okay.
I think this is a really good time to reflect on what you've just said, Becky, about the importance of infrastructure, but also of technology in supporting this and intelligent speed assistance and the role that it can play in the future, the role that it is playing in London at the moment, where when fitted on our buses, it's reduced speeding events by over 95%, over 62% on some of our support fleets that are servicing the operation in London. So it's important.
Do use your microphone.
They don't know what intelligent speed assist is. Can you?
Of course, sorry. So intelligent speed assistance is technology that can be fitted to vehicles. It can work in a passive or active form. It determines where a vehicle is, either using GPS or cameras, and then it identifies the speed limit of that location. If it's an active form of ISA, then it prevents the vehicle from exceeding that speed limit with certain workarounds if there is a rare occurrence where you need to.
Alex, is this on buses or can it be on any vehicle?
It can be fitted on any vehicle. Across the European Union, it will be fitted as standard in a couple of years' time. And we have trialled fitting it on a number of our buses. We currently have...
Surely buses don't speed, Alex?
They shouldn't, should they?
In 20-mile zones, yes, they do.
Ooh, okay.
And I should note here that the World Health Organization recommends setting speed limits in dense urban areas where you have motorized and non-motorized traffic mixing at no more than 30 kilometers per hour. And we were just talking, there are very few cities in the world that have adopted this. We have the former mayor of Bogota with us somewhere. I think she led the first city in Latin America to adopt a 50 kilometer an hour speed limit. And then the Colombian government a few years later passed that at the national level. So it's a great example of cities leading the charge in this area. But just to say, even in the US, I don't know of any cities that meet that best practice requirement for what cities should have as a speed limit.
And I think from Sierra Leone, maybe we approach it from a different perspective. For us, because majority of those that use the informal transportation, so that's about 70%. What we did was we created a special route and excluded all those, like the senator said, those muchachos, but we call them tricycles and motorcycle riders, because we used to get the highest from the data, we used to get the highest amount of accident from them. So what we did was to get all of them out of those designated route. So by doing so, we're able to reduce the accidents that have been occurring in those areas. And of course, policy-wise as well, for speeding, we have special courts only for that. That's also in the pipeline.
Special courts?
Special courts.
So you
only
speed, you go to the special court?
Only for minor offenses, especially minor traffic offenses.
What's minor?
Minor...
just in case I go to Sierra Leone.
Drunk driving and...
That's not minor.
Well, we don't have too many people. We don't have too many really being caught drunk driving. So we have a very minimal number.
What else is minor?
I think like some of them don't really adhere to some of the safety rules as well.
Are there fines?
Yeah, there are fines.
So this is a way for the government to make money?
Not really for the government to make money, but to deter those that really want to be overspeeding to reduce their speed.
And you just benefit just incidentally, which is good, right?
No, well, of course, I mean, the money's coming in would be used as well for safety
For safety?
Yes.
All right, very good. Philip, go
As a
ahead.
matter of fact, enforcement is important when you work on traffic safety. It's one of the things you have to do. It's one of the easy you mentioned before. But also it starts with an education, and it starts with culture. We and even we in Flanders and in Belgium, we have the wrong culture. We think it's okay to speed when there's not much traffic. And to be honest, when we have a party, oh, that second glass, why not? And the third one, tempting. And that's where it goes wrong. Yeah. And that's why I was laughing about older men, but that's their culture. They were used in the 70s that drinking and driving was okay. And it was not so bad if you drink one glass too much. But today we really have to reckon that this can be done. It's not possible. Drinking and driving is not possible. And my kids know it, and they won't do it. So the young are the example for the older one here.
I love that you talking about culture, because certainly with Flanders, it has a cycling culture, it has an active mobility culture that the rest of us kind of look at and with a sense of, how did you do that?
Well,
is it because Flanders is flat?
Well, that's sure has something to do with it, but it rains a lot too. So that might be a disadvantage when you want to cycle, but that's not true. First of all, we have a cycling culture in sports, as for a long time. And 15 years ago, we started really investing in it, investing from 100 million 15 years ago a year to 300 million a year now. And we do this every year. So this means that there was a better infrastructure, or a better infrastructure is coming, which is safer and which tends people to get on their bike. And then I have to be honest, there's two things that helped also, the electrification of the bicycles and the COVID pandemic too, because they all joined the bike and they all went out on a bike, and it stayed. The only modal shift number we saw changing over the last 15 years is the bike percentage. The bike percentage is going up, and it's not all about investing. It's also about working with stakeholders. When I heard Mr. Senator, you asked earlier on, what would you do when you go home? Well, the first thing I want to do when I go home is ask Mr. Senator to come speak to us as policymakers in Flanders, because we have something to learn from her. And then when we talk about integral accessibility, I can learn a few things. And that's what we have to do, work with stakeholders is the second thing, investing, work with stakeholders, and then work on integrated planning. Because when we build roads, when we build bicycle paths, we're not working on infrastructure, we're working on an environment where people live. And it should all start with the reflection of the people living there. What would they want? What would they desire from the infrastructure before their doors? And that's where it all starts. And that's this culture change, this culture shift we really need.
Alex, what can we learn from the way that London is investing in mobility?
What can you learn from London? To plan holistically and make sure that you use the evidence base at every opportunity, I think would be the best thing to learn, because that being robust and reliable really helps you build that integrated plan. It helps you drive those circular benefits that fit with safety, with active travel, with the carbon benefits, and ensure that you change the city that you're creating. In terms of what we're doing in London, we also had a similar experience to Flanders, and I'm sure a lot of the world in the pandemic, with a mass rollout of cycling infrastructure over 100 kilometres, and different types of infrastructure like school streets and low traffic neighbourhoods, and being able to install these and try them using new innovative techniques is something that has been really successful. Road safety performance is improving in London, and it's not necessarily improving as much as we would like it to, because obviously the aspiration is for no one to be killed or seriously injured. But it is changing, and using the safe system approach and the 5 pillars, there are really brilliant examples of interventions like the direct vision standard that enables better vision from the cab of heavy goods vehicles to those who are around them whilst they're travelling, like the proof points we've developed around implementing 20 mile an hour in our city. there is so much you can put into the package if you have the evidence of what's causing harm and how you can affect change.
I feel like you could do a TED talk about inclusive mobility in London and everybody here would go to it. All right, Minister, I want to give you 1 minute to think of a question that you would like to ask one of your co-panelists, because what I've noticed is there's beautiful synergy in this plenary in particular. You're all nodding, having little side conversations. Philip and Becky, you just said something to each other off mic. What did you say?
Well, I was saying I would go to the TED Talk for Alex.
No, it was before the TED Talk comment. You turned to each other and you said...
We were saying he's right.
Ah.
Yes.
Nice.
About the holistic piece.
Yes.
And I can give a quick example. We were in a city. Oh my gosh, this is the worst. We were in Accra, Ghana.
Okay.
And they showed us a school zone that they had implemented for low speeds. Great. They had a raised pedestrian crossing so that the children could safely access from the bus stop to enter the school. And it was great. And they said the speeds in this area have been reduced by such and such percent. They're now no longer traveling over 30 kilometers an hour. However, all the motorized traffic, and especially the motorcyclists, which are a rising concern in many of the parts of the world we're working in, had just changed their routes to go on the streets that didn't have it. So this aspect of a holistic, comprehensive plan is so critical, because otherwise people are just going to figure out where they can go as fast as they want and go on those routes instead. So I was definitely nodding to the holistic aspect.
This is where sustainable urban mobility planning comes in. It's the SUMP methodology is developed in Europe from cities. So cities took the initiative and then worked out the SUMP methodology, where you not only go to a plan, do, check, act cyclist, but you also do it with your stakeholders from the beginning. The definition of the problem, you do it with the stakeholders. Scenarios, you do it with the stakeholders. Choosing solutions, you do it with the stakeholders. Evaluation, you do it with the stakeholders. And this is what this SUMP methodology make it so particular. So that's nice. And it would be an inspiration that I want to talk about in all of the world. Just as in the Americas, you have transit-oriented development, is something I'd like to talk to in Europe, because we do it not enough. I'm sorry for my English, but I'm speeding in talking, and that's the words don't follow always.
In a 20-kilometer zone. No, your English is perfect. Thank you so much. I love it. Okay, Minister, what is your question for any of your panelists? Co-panelists.
Maybe I'll just ask my colleague here, Alex. We were having a conversation just before we came in here. Sierra Leone, as part of the reforms that we are having, we now have a regulator that regulates all the public transport within the country, but they are not operators. And whilst I was having a chat with Alex, and then he said, oh, well, we are regulators and at the same time operators, but of course there is a sort of a cloud line between the two. So I don't know if Alex can throw some light on that. How is it done, and then what's the challenge there?
Very, very happy to, Minister. So in Transport for London, we would never regulate the service that we operate ourselves directly, but Transport in London operates in a very intricate and special way, with some services being directly owned and operated by us, like the Tube, which is probably the brand that you're most familiar with, and our logo that's associated with it. Our buses and lots of our rail and tram and cable car services in London are concessions, so they're franchised, and then we license and regulate the taxi trade and the private hire trade that operate in the city. And we've obviously got the cycle hire offer as well. So the answer to your question is that that we have partner agencies to regulate the areas where we're directly operating.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
That is such a Minister of Transport question. I salute you for that. So Becky remembers a moment from last year's TT, which is extraordinary that you remember that moment. So I am giving you an assignment, Becky, and for all of our plenary speakers here to say something to this audience that they will remember in a year's time?
I have one.
I knew you would.
Because Femi is not only a fantastic moderator, you're a journalist as well. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage all of you to engage the journalists and the media as stakeholders in your road safety vision, because they're telling our stories. They're the ones writing up or on a newscast telling about what you're doing, the hard work that you as government people, ministers and mayors are doing, and not to see them as the enemy, but as stakeholders in your vision for improving safety, and to help them understand why you're reducing speed limits, or why you're investing in traffic calming, or why you're sending your police to enforce a drinking and driving checkpoint. Because then they can write in more nuanced ways, solution-based journalism, rather than writing up there was an accident and this many people died. But talking about the solutions to this and demanding that you as a government person, official, do more. It can, I think, can really make a difference. So that would be my one thing to please take home and remember.
Vip, you look deep in thought.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it, but I'd say that inclusive mobility is about conquering hearts and minds. And that's something we all have to do. And we have to encourage our decision makers to take up the courage and take these decisions to realize inclusive mobility.
Alex?
I think the thing I'd like everyone to go away and remember is to walk in the other person's shoes, whatever background it is they might be from, when you're trying to consider what you change about your city. It could be that you want to represent LGBT people or disabled people or women and improve your city in a particular environment for them, but walk in their shoes and design it that way.
Alex, 4 people clapped when you said that. Don't give him pity applause. Make him earn it. All right, Minister, 1 year from now, I want people still to be quoting you. What is the quote?
I think for me, safety should always come first. That is very important. Safety should come first. And therefore, as government, we should really focus on regulations that would ensure that the safety measures are taken in the heart of those decision makings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, plenary speakers. You were extremely memorable. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right. I'm going to take a moment to share with you a very special Transforming Transportation guest who sadly is no longer with us. Her name is Zuleika Mandela. She was a safety activist, a feminist, a road safety warrior. And 4 years ago, this year, in January, in 2020, we sat right here talking about her work. And as a tribute to her, I wanted to reshare that moment. She's a larger-than-life, extraordinary person that will be missed. Zuleika Mandela. Let's take a look.
My name is Zuleika Mandela, and I am a mother. I am an activist for road safety, and I am an activist for breast cancer, being a survivor myself. I am the founder of the Zuleika Mandela Foundation, which is really based on all my personal experiences and issues that are faced by so many of our young people. I am the granddaughter of the late Nelson and Winnie Mandela. And I am the mother of Zenani Mandela, who was killed by a drunk driver in 2010.
Tell us about the Vision Zero Challenge. We saw the video. What's your connection? What do we need to know about it?
What we need to know about it is that something can actually be done, right? The solutions are there. The solutions are quite affordable. They're quite simple. And I think the quicker that our leaders, the quicker international community actually make these commitments and take action, I think, the more of our children's lives would be spared.
Zuleika Mandela. We appreciate her, we miss her. And you heard there, she said she was a breast cancer survivor. Unfortunately, she passed away due to breast cancer. It is really hard to move on from this place, but I really felt that it was appropriate to have Zuleika in this segment about inclusivity and safety. So just a thought there, but what a beautiful, wonderful, amazing woman. Okay. We call this a big gear change in journalism. Oof. All right. Sustainable Transport Awards are happening right now. Hello, Heather. I am not the host of these awards. Great. I get to watch something at TT. I love it. Heather Thompson is the CEO, the Institute of Transportation and Development Policy. Heather, please come over here and host the awards. Thank you.
My pleasure. And it's so great to end the day on a high note. We started on a high note with many great folks on the stage, including Claudia Lopez, who the city of Bogota was our very first Sustainable Transport Award winner. So you got to appreciate the great wisdom coming from that city. And now it's my honor and pleasure to, for the first time ever, to have the Sustainable Transport Award here as part of the formal Transforming Transportation agenda to present it to the city of Tianjin, China. So I'd like to invite Director Lin of Tianjin Construction Bureau to the stage, as well as Gerald Olivier, who is the lead transportation specialist from the World Bank. And I'm just going to provide a few quick remarks. I think we can just maybe let you sit down on the stage. Maybe. Just a few quick comments to summarize the great work that the city of Tianjin has done. And I know Gerald has been a big supporter of the project, and so we'll be here to actually present the award. I want to first also thank the Sustainable Transport Award Committee, which there are many members of here in the room. The committee, the award is actually a highly competitive process, and we're open for applications for this year's award. So please, if you know any cities that have done tremendous work, please encourage them to apply for the award. And the Sustainable Transport Award is all about shining a light on cities around the world that are really taking bold action to do incredible things. And the city of Tianjin is really a tremendous example of that. For those of you that don't know Tianjin, it's a city of around 13 million people, which of course is not a small city at all, located on the coast in China near Beijing, just to give you a sense of where it is. Tianjin is winning this award today because of the tremendous work that they've done and investment that they have done in their cityscapes, working to improve the streets for walkability, cycling, and just generally improving the streetscape and green landscape and public space for their citizens. So often these awards go to big infrastructure projects, but we really wanted to shine a light on the importance of this streetscape project. Do we have translations? Okay, sorry, we were meant to have translation, but we do.
The headphones. We do not. They do.
Okay, can you hear? And is the translation working? I think it's channel. And is the translation working now? Is this good? How boo how? Channel 5.
This is channel 5, but 5.
We'll get there. We want to make sure that the award winner actually understands what's going on. This is critical. Okay, fantastic. Yeah. No, of course, we want to make sure as the award winner, you're understanding this. Okay. So where were we? So again, super excited to celebrate the city of Tianjin, who is winning this award for improving their streetscapes with investment in walkability, cycling, and green landscapes and public space, which again, so many of these projects often win for big infrastructure projects. But as we know, it's really the things that connect all of those big infrastructure projects that make cities what they are and livable and green and good for the climate and all of the things that we care about. So this is really a tremendous award and one of the largest investments in such type of streetscape improvements by the World Bank historically. So really precedent setting. And this investment really came about because the city had invested in their metro systems, but they were realizing that they weren't getting enough ridership on the metro systems. And part of the problem was that they were lacking good access to the metro systems. And so recognizing this problem, they really decided to invest in improving it. So again, they invested in 190 roads, totaling 132 kilometers of improvements, planting trees, repaving streets, making signage better, and generally just inviting people to come to the metro. And now they have exceeded their goal of a 70% mode share on walking, cycling, and public transportation. So that really is immense. And this approach of a systemic approach is really what we need with investments by our cities, by our governments, by banks. Not just the one-off infrastructure projects, but these systems approaches that we know really work together. And again, that's what the Sustainable Transport Award is all about. It's recognizing these lighthouse projects, these projects that are special, that we want to shine a light on, we want to share with all of you, and we want to make sure that those lighthouse projects become a norm. So again, so excited to be celebrating this with Tianjin. So with that, I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about the adventures and journey of the city in making that investment. And I want to pass the mic to Gerald Olivier, and maybe we can stand up for this part, who was a tremendous supporter from the World Bank for this investment in this tremendous project, to present the award. And then I think we'll hear a bit more about the project.
Thank you to the MC, and thank you for your very kind words, and thanks to the committee, to the STA committee, to award Tianjin this very special award. This is very encouraging to us who have been working to improve the sustainability transport in Tianjin. Just like you said, I wanted to say that our Tianjin municipality, the government has really poured in significant investment. Previously, Tianjin was in cooperation with World Bank and a lot of international organizations to carry out main projects in Tianjin. And one of the key things is we build a brand new city on a previously obsolete area in Tianjin, and we were trying to reach all of the green standards. And this time around, when we participate in the STA award competition, we introduces a new method in an older area in Tianjin that we built, like the MC mentioned, that we poured a lot of investment in improving the metro system, but also we built on that and improved a lot of non-motorized pedestrians' access to enjoy public spaces in the area. And we bring a lot of convenience to our walkers and non-motorized users in Tianjin, and have significantly improved the quality of life in Tianjin. And we received a lot of approval from our pedestrians. And yesterday and today, I exchanged my views with a lot of experts from IT today, and I have come to appreciate even more that in a city such like Tianjin, who has a history of more than 600 years, and with a population of 13 million, it's a mega city, and to make sure we can build a sustainable transport model that is very significant but it is doable. It is something that we were able to achieve, and with the joint effort that we poured in. So I wanted to say that this time around we were able to win this award. It's really an affirmation to our effort, and I would really appreciate the committee's approval for our work. And I also wanted to say that this is not just the government, but also about our people in Tianjin, and also this is with tremendous help from World Bank and a lot of support we received from multiple international organizations. But this is also we received a lot of private enterprises in China who was supporting this joint project. So this is really a success that shared by multiple parties that were involved. So this year in Tianjin, we in Tianjin are working even harder and entering a new phase of sustainable transport development. This year, we believe this is really we've achieved a milestone in the sustainable transport, but in the future we would focus on and try to realize to build a 200 kilometers of metro expansion, and also to add more public transport system, as well as to expand our non-motorized access to the city. And we want to realize that going this year and next year. And also this year, February 1st, which was also happened to be Chinese Spring Festival, our General Secretary Xi Jinping has actually visited Tianjin, and one of his key instructions for Tianjin was that he wanted Tianjin to achieve two main goals, main objectives. Number one is he wanted us to build Tianjin into a modernized international cosmopolitan. And also he wanted Tianjin to join hand with Beijing, the capital city, to form a world-class mega cosmopolitan circle. He also wanted us to improve our urban planning, the quality of our urban planning capabilities. So I believe, going forward, we're going to focus on trying to build Tianjin, Beijing as a joint world-class urban circle, but also we wanted to improve our capabilities to better manage it, but also at the same time to expand more cooperation with our international friends and other urban centers to learn and also to further cooperate with the World Bank and other international organizations to deepen our cooperation to help us achieve our goals. At the same time, we also wanted to improve and enhance our cooperation and exchanges with our other sister cities in the world. And I welcome the leaders and managers of other major cities to visit Tianjin and to exchange views with us, share your good practices with us, so that we can explore even new ways to improve. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lin, for sharing your words with us about the project. It's clear that it's been an immense take these off, that makes it easier. An immense investment, not only for the city of Tianjin, but really it's a lighthouse for all of us around the world and for the country of China, who has so many big cities really looking to need to do the same sort of thing. Again, 70% mode share is really an incredible achievement. So one more round of applause, and with that, we'll break. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. I have a feeling when this next gentleman comes on stage, there will be a halo over his head, sparks will fly off his shoes, because he represents our lead sponsor, FedEx. Brandon Tidwell. Hello.
No sparks. So you said earlier that somebody was going to sing for us. No, you heard no music.
It's the senator, but this is why we have the cocktail.
So next year at 25, I'm investing transit-oriented karaoke.
I love this.
So there's hit songs out there like On the Road Again, On the Bus Again, On the Bike Again. I can't wait to get on my bike again. Or, you know, fast car. You could do fast, speed appropriate bus.
Number one right now.
That's right.
Right.
Next year.
Yeah. 20 miles an hour.
20 miles an hour, absolutely. So, but if you think about it, the only song we know about buses is the wheels on the bus go round and round. So if you want to make some outreach, try to see if you can get Taylor Swift or Rihanna to maybe cut some.
We actually tried Rihanna.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, she said no. She's like, Femi looks like me.
I told Femi that I was the one thing standing between you and the reception and drinks, so I didn't want to give you a formal list of comments, of which I have if you want to hear them. But we are very proud of at FedEx to work with WRI and the Ross Center for Cities. We have a long history of almost 15 years together, and I believe we're going to have many, many more. We've helped with the launch of things like Quali Onibus that was taking Thrive in 30 plus cities in Brazil. Early days of Metrobus in both Guadalajara and Mexico City. The innovation around MOS in Beijing, right? And then the Better Bus Challenge in India. These are just a few of the things that we've had the privilege of supporting WRI to do. This year, we have some guests here from Climate Kick as well. Very excited to have them along, who are running a sustainable, really active mobility competition throughout Europe that we're hoping to expand as well. But the work that we've done with WRI has impacted almost 20 million people, I think, since we started, and taken about 1 million megatons of CO2. So as a company that moves packages and doing so ever more so sustainably every day with thousands of EVs on the road, it's also important for us to help public transit to move in that same direction. And if you think about it, the way that we move people is often the same way we think about moving packages. We want to do it safely, we want to do it quickly, and we want to make sure that there's good customer service along the way. So we're really very proud of our work with WRI, proud to work with World Bank and WRI to sponsor TT 2024. And we'll look forward to karaoke next year.
You are the lead sponsor. You can have whatever you want.
So we'll thank you guys very much for attending, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Brandon. You are all my plus 700 for the cocktail reception, which will be happening in the atrium just outside. Thank you for spending an entire day at transforming transportation. And I will see you back here bright and early tomorrow. But for now, have a great evening. And thank you for all of the contributors and for you being the best audience I've worked with all day. Thank you.